Shehzad Poonawalla, spokesperson, national spokesperson of the BJP, continues to be with us. Shehzad Poonawalla, a big task ahead. All eyes are going to be on the center. 3 good things that this budget will have for the people watching you right now. Let's start the morning with a sweetener.
Well, you see, Padmaja, let me just put it in this way, that we don't live in a normal global situation anymore. Today, tariffs are being weaponized. We are living in an area of fragmented supply chains. And therefore, even though we have high growth, low inflation, banks are in a very healthy position, that in itself is not a promise for macroeconomic rewards. And therefore, what are the learnings that we have? The learnings that we should have is that we need to be Atmanirbhar. We need to have modernization and indigenization. We need to have supply chains that are reliable. We need to have diversified markets for our exports. And we need to ensure that there is a reform process that continues where we don't live in an era of regulation, but an era of enabling businesses and enabling manufacturing in this country. And therefore, what I think will happen and will continue to happen is that the reforms express is going to catch even more speed. So see, there will be more changes in ease of doing business so that we can boost not only domestic production and thereby consumption, but also ensure that we can now be competitive in a global market where we need to find diversified markets for our goods. Because sometimes tariffs and trades may be weaponized. So therefore, we need to be in that mode or in that situation. And therefore, what I think will happen
is, in the last economic survey also highlighted, it said that Indian corporates are not really investing in India. There is no appetite to invest in India, and that Swadeshi is inevitable. And there was a comparison drawn to corporates in post-war Japan, America, and several other countries, even Germany. And, the fact that Swadeshi can be a defense mechanism is not something that Indian corporates are willing to understand. How do you think this budget will look at addressing that concern?
See, I would think it has to be strategic indispensability and disciplined Swadeshi. We need to align both of these things. There are certain critical sectors where we need to have complete indigenization. We need to be Atmanirbhar, and that is the need of the hour, especially given how supply chains in the world can behave. And therefore, that is something that we need to focus on. And for that, we need to enable the environment here in such a way that the domestic producers are incentivized to actually produce in that and to invest more. And I think that will be something that we will be doing. Don't look at just the reform process as part of the budget document, but look at it as an entire year's exercise, where there will be many key sectors where there will be reforms so that there's an enabling environment. In the last few years, if you see the reforms express, whether it's the GST, whether it's the direct tax reform to boost consumption in the country, domestic consumption, whether it is the reforms done in terms of digital infrastructure that has been created, whether it's the IBC, it's a whole range of reforms that are taking place. And that reforms express is going to be very critical to ensure that in a volatile global situation, we remain competitive and we can then do more FTAs and find diversified markets in friendly options and friendly countries that are willing to do a win-win business deal with us.
Well, the MOS Finance has already reached the Finance Ministry. Mr. Kanishk Agarwal, artificial intelligence expert and CTO at the Judge Group, is also with us, along with Kailash Adhikari. Mr. Agarwal, what do you make of the government's push this time? We hear a lot of talk about reforms, that we are going to continue to make the ease and speed of doing business one of our ongoing projects in India, as it were.
So I think there are a few areas where the government really has to focus. I think we were talking about CapEx earlier in the program. So the CapEx push has clearly delivered from roads, railways, logistics, and visible that an industry requires. But I think you should now focus on the returns on these CapEx, right? From an asset monetization perspective, PPP models, and creating those more industrial clusters around infrastructure. The schemes around India Semiconductor Missions and India AI Mission, has created those DLI and PLI schemes. I think the incentive for innovation is required, from the government standpoint. I think the next phase is not about sweating the assets, but it is about building them. MSME are the heart of the nation, right? And they don't need more schemes. I think they need more simpler rules. From a GST perspective, there are delayed payments that are there, from an export foreign policy as well. I think it's impacting them. So AI is the next productivity leap. I think from electricity perspective, which was a century ago, I think it is required that data, R&D, and access to the right compute is important for us. So that is, I think, the focus should be there. I think it can help us
That's a very
reach
important
billions of dollars
point,
from
Mr.
a GDP.
Adhikari. There is a section of experts who also believe that, with all these tariff issues coming up. Okay, Teshri joins us now from outside the Finance Minister's residence. Teshri, what's happening there? Pankaj Chaudhary, the MOS, has already reached Finance Ministry. What's happening outside Finance Minister's residence?
Absolutely, Pankaj Chaudhary, the MOS Finance has already reached at Kartavya Bhavan, and just few seconds back, Nirmala Sitharaman, the Finance Minister, has left from her residence. These are the visuals that we are giving you just outside the residence of Nirmala Sitharaman, who has just left for Kartavya Bhavan to present the 9th consecutive budget. There now she will be going at Kartavya Bhavan, post that she will be going to Rashtrapati Bhavan, and finally to Sansad Bhavan, that's the parliament, to present her budget speech. Quite an iconic speech will be this time today, because number of things in the line as far as the expectations are concerned. What we're also expecting is that if we talk about the fiscal deficit, that's expecting to below the lines of 4.4% as well. Apart from that, focus will definitely be on the Gen Z, the youngsters, because they comprise of 65% of India's population. So what is there for the startups as far as the youngsters are concerned? The sectors of artificial intelligence, apart from that, as we spoke on MSMEs, the artificial intelligence, semiconductors, these all will be focal points. Apart from that, what will also be there in agriculture sector, in education sector, these all will also be the focus point.
Absolutely. So common people will also be the focus of this budget. Mr. Adhikari, I was asking you, a section of experts, global experts, also believe that this is the time for India to be adventurous when it comes to economic reforms, considering that there are disruptions in the rules-based order. Help us understand, is it time for India to do that, considering that fiscal consolidation is also very important?
Absolutely. Earlier in the broadcast, Padmaja, you presented a very nice picture in front of the audiences about where does the actually rupee come from. And, a major part of that actually comes from your tax receipts. Last year in the budget, the government really gave a push to the salaried class, wherein in the new regime up to 12.75 lakhs was completely non-taxable. Now that definitely takes a slight hit on the tax receipts. So at the same time, where the government focuses on increasing the public spending, in key areas, as Mr. Poonawalla also said, and that is the core focus of the government. But at the same time, the government needs to be little cautious also, because boosting the recovery in consumption and letting the private investment to drive growth in the economy are the two main levers which I understand. At the same time, capital expenditure in certain key areas which we are talking about in the light of the current events in defense, at the same time technology, healthcare, education, urban infrastructure, which even the Honorable Prime Minister is completely pushing for, because that actually creates a lot of jobs which the peripheral economy also benefits. In the light of the current EU FTA trade agreement, where the textile sector, which is now close to providing employment to 6 to 7 million people, that is going to boost the kind of deal that we have cracked with the EU in terms of the levy of imports and on what exports from India will also be levied. So that completely has a balance of convenience in India's favor. But at the same time, where we are thinking and we are expecting the government to spend a lot, we have to be cautious about the fact that, all this spending comes from the tax receipts. At the same time, where the government is boosting consumption in the hands of the people by increasing their disposable income, we have to be cautious that the spending and the capital expenditure, the government needs to be cautious about also.
All right, Dr. Sujit Paul, Group CEO of Zota Healthcare, also is with us now. Caution or spending? Which way would you lean when looking at the budget this time? Dr. Paul.
Thank you so much. From a healthcare perspective, there would be a significant push on spending that I feel, because there is one area that will have a very strong AI focus, as our Honorable Prime Minister had given a hint earlier. We will definitely see a push on AI movement in healthcare. We have already seen how India have really fought hard on the tariffs, and there is where the entire movement towards ensuring that Sector B and Sector C towns are being focused into primary, tertiary, and secondary healthcare to make India healthcare strong at large. Whilst I would have been more happy if government mandates the usage of high quality, affordable generic medicines, but I'm not too sure, whether they would make it a mandate. But once that mandate comes, I think that's the next kranti that will come in India towards ensuring that every Indian can afford high quality generic medicine, and there will be a
Just
shift.
a second, sorry
that
to
would
interrupt
happen.
you, but I think we're getting these first images of the finance minister. Yes, there she is. Nirmala Sitharaman has just reached the finance ministry, and Shreya Ghosh is joining us live from outside there. I think we could get trolled for this, but a lot of focus always remains, Shreya, on what the finance minister is wearing, because she's made it a point to also make a statement with the lovely handloom saris that she comes in. But she's there at the finance ministry. Shreya, over to you.
Traditional budget budget pouch, the digital budget, she will be posing here at around 8:45, and from here she will be heading towards Rashtrapati Bhavan, where she will be giving a budget copy to through Draupadi Murmu, the president of our country, and will be seeking her blessings, and there will be a photo opportunity there. And after that, her convoy will be departing to the parliament, where a union cabinet meeting will take place, and then she will be delivering her speech at 11 a.m. sharp. And as the nation tunes in, anticipation centers on what the budget holds for the citizens, especially the youth, the women, farmers. The
milestone for the finance minister, because she's an independent finance minister of India. It's a huge post for a woman in India to have somebody who doesn't come from a political family. Yes, she's entered the finance ministry, and of course she'll be attending the cabinet meeting today for the budget to get approved first. Let me also go across to Mr. Harish Karamchandani.
Very often, Vasudha, getting a lot of flack,
Yes,
over
absolutely.
the last almost a decade that she has presented budgets one after the other, and taking over at a very difficult time after, when you had the passing of Mr. Arun Jaitley
Yes.
going away. Then you have Nirmala Sitharaman presenting the budgets. There were difficult times, and sometimes getting a lot of very unnecessary flack of not really doing much, only being a puppet. But despite that, a personal milestone for her.
Absolutely, and she's been quite graceful about all the trolling, and she's been quite consistent with the fact that her achievements are the government's achievements. So she's not really taken a lot of this personal limelight.
And
for
without
herself.
being flashy, because the expectation is that come out and make some shock and awe announcements, and every time there has to be a master stroke. But being very stolid, said we need to basically just ensure that we are in a secure position.
Absolutely.
And my job is cut out. I have to deliver on what my asks are. And she's going about her business without overly being flashy or, out there.
Absolutely. We also have Mr. Harish Karamchandani of Hyphen Foods with us. Mr. Karamchandani, when it comes to the consumer and his needs or her needs, what do you expect from the budget today?
Okay, so as far as food processing is concerned, consumers are, looking forward to, there is shift in consumption patterns, looking to, the economy growing and also urbanization happening, nuclear families, working women, and so on and so forth. So there necessarily needs to be a boost in consumption, and that's what the consumer is also looking forward for. So if, a good step was rationalization of the GST rates, which in fact is going to increase consumption. At the same time, if the necessary fillip can be given to the food processing sector, this will further help reduce, wastages, and also at the same time make, food products more affordable for the customers. And at the same time, I would say it also helps in a big way the agriculture sector, because as you know, food processing is directly linked to, farmer incomes. The more procurement of agri produce from the farmers, that, will benefit the farmers.
All right, Ruth Chatterjee, Director of OBT and Lakshmi Group and co-chair of FICCI's National Committee on Ease of Doing Business, and that really is the operative part. What do you, Mr. Chatterjee, want from the government for ease of doing business? Further ease of
This is a very important budget. I think this is after 1991, where we have such significant headwinds through which this budget is being read. At the same time, we have a booming economy, and that is our best defense in this global environment. So the government has to push the economic growth, especially the consumption, which is 60% of the economy. I think the GST reforms has started that journey, but how to create consumption to strengthen Indian economy. And for those sectors such as furniture, which are highly export dependent, facing headwinds of the tariff, I think the EU trade deal was amazing, but allowing SEZs to sell domestically, making sure that domestic brands strengthen and go global, those are the expectations from the budget.
Shehzad Poonawalla, this is also, like Padmaja and I were speaking, this is also a personal milestone for the finance minister. She has really carried India's economy, in a very dignified way, taking a lot of flack for slowdown once in a while. Help us understand politically what does this mean for the finance minister and also for the BJP, because it has a woman finance minister leading the country today.
The most important thing is that we have a very competent finance minister. The gender, of course, many people will look at that, but the fact is that she is the right person for the job, and therefore she's delivered without any big headlines. She has managed that the 11th position economy is today in 5th and 4th position, on the way to becoming the 3rd largest economy. We have been delivering the highest growth rates for a large economy. The IMF has also testified to that. We have kept inflation at a record low. I think it's about 2 or 3%. This month it must be about 4%, but otherwise it's been in the range of 1 to 2% in the last few months. And that gives us additional space for not only having more public expenditure, but also boosting private consumption, which we've done by cutting direct taxes. We've given a huge relief on GST, so people can spend more, and we have that elbow room because it does not, it does not lead to high inflation because of that. Now, having said that, what we need to do is, of course, on the one hand, give more money in the hands of people, which continues, because it's not just about giving tax cuts. It's also about the additional way we put money in people's hands. For instance, somebody was mentioning about mandating generic medicines. We have Jan Aushadhi Kendra, which makes it simpler and cheaper for people to buy generic drugs as opposed to expensive drugs, which are branded drugs. We've given them a relief on the Ayushman Bharat. We are expanding that network, and then we are giving more relief in terms of other places where they can save money and then spend it on things like education or other things that they need for their aspirational living. For instance, building toilets in their house or giving them tap water connection. These things help in saving money, saving costs on health expenditure, and therefore that's more money in their hands. Having done that, what we also need to do now is that we need to ensure that there are diversified markets for our goods. And therefore, what is going to be important is that how we are going to structure many more deals to come forward. India-EU FTA is one example by which a lot of our labor-intensive sectors are going to get a huge market there. Fisheries, for instance, are going to get a huge market in Europe now. And similarly, we'll be structuring that. But that necessarily does not become part of the budget document. It is an ongoing process.
Rutu Chatterjee, I think that is also going to be key. Diversified markets.
Absolutely. And that includes export markets and domestic markets. So what we need to do is, while we have a strong and large labor force, we have to create brands. It cannot be just B2B business from Indian companies selling to foreign brands. We have to have Indian brands going global. Yeah. As our labor cost increases, it has to be design, technology, branding, and other strengths that ensure that India has an opportunity today of a large domestic consumption market. Build on that consumption market, and the budget has to find ways to help Indian brands scale globally, which includes the best thing that you can do is, increase Indian consumption. And then that becomes the home market. And then, we are not only dependent on large B2B markets globally in this environment with high tariffs and protectionism.
Right. Let me go to Kanishk Agarwal now. Kanishk Agarwal, when you talk about setting up this AI ecosystem and when tech giants keep asking for more push from the government side when it comes to budgetary allocation for AI, one question that always emerges is that where are you going to get talent for that? Because that's going to be a sustained process, right? So how are you going to ask for more AI investments when India is still working on talent on that count?
So from a talent perspective, I think India already has a lot of talent. I think what we lack is an affordable compute and large-scale digital infrastructure. So from an AI perspective, I think it has the next productivity leap, and I think it's important that a lot of investment goes into it. I think from a skill gap perspective, I think there is a skill mismatch that is there. So there is no outcome linked skilling where funding is tied to actual employment for the people. So there are people that want to be in AI, they want to be in semiconductor, they want to be in different fields. But do they have the right skills to build and get employed in that? So I think the budget should focus on, right from certificates to employability, that, how these people can be employed at a ground level and be a part of the ecosystem, be it in different fields. So I think that is the key.
Shehzad Poonawalla, how much of a challenge is it to try and balance the interests or rather the concerns of the business community and your own political concerns in an election year?
No, first of all, we have to stop thinking in the traditional way that good economics makes for bad politics. The fact of the matter is that this government, if one highlight can be drawn over the last 10 years, 11 years, is that we have not compromised our economic interests just because politically it is convenient to do something else. There have been often times where as a party I believe
money in the hands of people just before elections. There is a strain on the budget, right? There is a strain on the finances of the state. If you say, I'm going to give 2,500 rupees, I'm going to give 2,000 rupees, and are we going to see a repeat of that across the states that are going to elections this time, for example?
Let me, it's a very myopic view when it is seen in that way. That's not how it works, actually. If you see right from 2001 onwards, ever since Prime Minister had become Chief Minister of Gujarat, or we had a Shivraj Singh Chauhan taking over in 2005, or we had other Chief Ministers, the process of empowerment of certain sections which needed that boost. There was female feticide. We needed to strengthen the fact that the sex ratio needed to become positive in terms of females. We did a number of initiatives, and one part of that initiative is to give a kind of a incentive to certain sections of women so that they can spend it on their living, on their education, on their traveling and other expenses, which by the way also helps in boosting consumption. So to look at it as some kind of freebie is not the right way to look at it. Let me give you an example. There are two models of giving free power. One is a model that many give by putting the pressure on discoms, which are already in big losses. The other way is to now incentivize people to have Surya Ghar Yojana, so it is not a burden on the taxpayer or on the environment, and you get free electricity through the Surya Ghar Yojana by putting a solar panel, and you're also able to sell that electricity into the grid and earn money. So there are two ways of doing it.
I think Pankaj Chaudhary has just spoken and said and 2047 is going to be the target of this budget. We are going to see what we hope to achieve over the next 25 years. The MOS Finance has said that the focus of the budget today is going to be 2047, and the goals of the next 25 years are going to define what we do this time around, Vasudha.
That's a very important thing. Let's ask this question to Professor Amir Ullah Khan. Mr. Khan, the fact that Viksit Bharat is going to be the focus of this budget, the fact that, we are at a sweet spot, okay, Mr. Adhikari, the fact that, our growth is projected to be around 6.8 to 7.2%, but it's still not what Viksit Bharat would demand. What kind of growth rate do you think India should be working at right now, and what kind of what kind of reforms does India need right now to get that 2047 Viksit Bharat in some ways, in place?
Since we are talking about Viksit Bharat or 2047, I believe it's a journey. So anyone does not have a magic wand in their hand. So all the right steps which the government is taking right now in terms of each and every sector, that will lead to Viksit Bharat in a slow and steady manner, because each and every building block, each and every year has to be treated as a building block towards achieving that. Be it a personal income tax or be it sectors which require that kind of hard push. Now there is a request from various sections of the society where the gig workers are there, that not to be treated as welfare but to be treated as a part of the economic welfare. So now if the government really focuses on all the sectors, it is not each and every sector has their own expectations, and the government does its best in taking into account what the best it can do, looking at its own wallet. But looking at the fact that we are now a $4 trillion economy, from here, even if we grow at 6.8 to 7%, in about few years' time, we'll be at a $10 trillion economy. And that is no mean feat for India to achieve. And we are actually poised to be that, and we are right on that track. So if you ask me about Viksit Bharat 2047, I think India is right on track, and we are at the center of spotlight for that when it comes to the entire world also as a whole.
Okay, let's listen in fact to what Pankaj Chaudhary told us just a while ago.
देखिए, पिछले 11 सालों से प्रधानमंत्री जी ने जो उनके नेतृत्व में जो बजट पेश हुआ, देश की जनता की आकांक्षाओं पे और देश को आगे बढ़ाने वाला बजट था। और आज का बजट जो पेश हो रहा 2047 के विकसित भारत को ध्यान में रख करके बजट आएगा।
The question also is what is, the idea of Viksit Bharat? Is it even possible, Vasudha, to try and plan that far ahead? Because everything cannot be controlled by you. How do you ensure that all your goals are achievable over the next 25 years, considering how things are changing so fluidly outside of us?
Absolutely. And I think that's what the government is cognizant of, Padmaja, which is why three important moves were put in place last year. One is, of course, the tax cut, which Nirmala Sitharaman announced, then the GST rate rationalization, and the labor code that came into force. Let me ask this question to Shehzad. Shehzad, the fact that these three important moves took place last year, how do you think this is going to be in some ways expedited? How is the reform that's going to get announced today or in the later part of the year going to in some ways amplify the impact of the reforms that have already been done?
You see, what has been the core agenda of our reform process or reform express? One sector has been to make doing business easier. So therefore, you do away with the regulations. Padmaja was asking me about politics versus economics. We brought in GST in 2017. It was very foolhardy to do it because Gujarat elections were just around the corner and no sensible politician would have said कि ये करना है. But we took that risk. We bit the bullet. We subsumed the taxes and we got in one nation, one tax, GST 1.2 at that point of time. We didn't think about the political dividends. In fact, maybe we even got little affected by it. But we put that in place and that made it easier. And today we are now in a situation where GST has really boosted up how much the states also get and how much the country is also getting in terms of taxes, and is also able to make one market for all our goods. Secondly, then we have gone for the direct tax reform, which means that more money is left in the hands of the people. No other budget you would have thought. Last year I remember the discussion, people are saying 10 lakh tak relief mil jaye, and then lo and behold you got relief up to 12 lakhs. So Nirmala Sitharaman exceeded the expectations. So common man was given more money in his hand so he can end up spending more. Thirdly, we have given the without leakage welfare should be delivered. First, we used to give 20 lakh, 30 lakh crores into the pockets of people, but out of that, 15, 16 lakh crores was taken away by one Lutera Panja. Rajiv Gandhi has only said it. But today, when we are giving even 15 lakh crore or 20 lakh crore, that entire amount is going into the hands of the beneficiary, and therefore the beneficiary is then able to spend that money in the higher consumption. If you see the patterns of consumption, now more money is being spent not just on food, on other items as well. So that again boosts up the domestic consumption. So this has been the trajectory of the reforms. Now the fourth set of reforms that we need to do is that we need to enable the systems that we can have globally strong brands that can compete in the world, and they can compete in America also, they can compete in Europe also, they can compete in Middle East also, they can compete in Far East also. So we need to now create that enabling atmosphere for our businesses to go global and they can find a market for their products wherever in the world.
What will you do today to ensure that you create that enabling environment?
I'll tell you. For instance, because AI is the buzzword, what have we done? We have started centers of excellence. We are now investing in AI missions. But apart from that, part of it is about skills. Now, that skills part doesn't come in budget. It comes in national education program, where we have now moved on from rote learning or memory learning to skill-based learning or skill application and aptitude to be developed. So that is part of the national new education policy. So not everything can be envisioned in a budget document. It is rather a statement of intent. And today, don't look at it as allocation. Look at it as ambition. Our budgets is not about allocation. It is about unlocking ambition of India. That is how you should look at the
Let me go
budgets
across
of
to
Modi
Harish
government.
Karamchandani. Mr. Karamchandani, the fact that agriculture has been mindfully kept out of a lot of negotiations, although 8 FTAs have been signed in the last many years, last few years actually. What is the hope and expectation when it comes to processed food or agri products specifically concerning the budget today?
You see, in a lot of fruits and vegetables in the agricultural sector, in a lot of fruits and vegetables, India is, number one, number two in terms of overall production. But at the same time, the farmers' incomes is not, rising as our economy is growing. And hence, it has thoughtfully been kept out of all these FTAs so that Indian farmers are being protected. Because what is required for Indian farmers is storage and processing infrastructure wherein, wastages can be reduced. And further, what is now needed is that because we have such large production, value-added products, which not only can be consumed within India, looking at the huge, population we have, which can be a large consumer base for us, but at the same time, we can also do a lot of value addition and export to the world. So, which is where the focus of the Indian government is to also emphasize on boosting exports, and that's the reason within these FTAs, agricultural products have been kept aside; they have been protected.
But Harish Karamchandani, when the government talks about creating an enabling atmosphere, an enabling environment for its local brands, what do you want from the government to ensure that that happens?
So first of all, especially for the food sector, for the food processing sector, the consumption locally needs to be boosted. Wherein if I have to talk about the processed food, there is a lot of myth around consumption of processed food. So if that myth can be broken, what happens is that there are a lot of products which are made without any preservatives. It is just, some, like, for example, we are into frozen food. So freezing is the technology which is used in enhancing the shelf life. So if those myths can be broken by means of creating more awareness, education, and which is where, the local consumption also can be increased. And that thereby automatically will reduce, I would say, wastages, because, when you prepare fresh food, I mean, using fresh fruits and vegetables, it results into a lot of wastages as well.
Right. Let me go across to Mr. Kanishk Agarwal. Yeah. Kanishk, help us understand when it comes to intelligence-first infrastructure, something that gets talked about quite many times now. Where is India in the context of AI? Because we've seen countries like Taiwan doing really well when it comes to AI, but when it comes to India, we're there. We're investing a lot, but we're still not there. In the league of US or China or other countries. What should India be doing, and what kind of allocation are you looking forward to?
Yeah, so I think there is an elevated strategic focus on AI, definitely from the government. We have seen good, stronger policy and funding focus. But from overall perspective, I think the India AI mission initiatives, that is the compute infrastructure, the innovation centers, the data sets platforms, the startups, we want more startups to come in this space, and the skill development. So this will drive adoption across the sectors. I think there is a call from our side, to enhance the digital infrastructure and the incentives to scale the AI adoption in logistics, manufacturing, healthcare, and services. So if you look into the MSMEs, they do not have the working capital and others. So they need to have the money to invest in AI and other digital ecosystem. Also, we are looking for some locally relevant AI models and the data access, so that we have these public data sets available and we can develop more AI models to be tailored to India's linguistic and cultural diversity. And obviously, a lot of liquidity, for R&D investments that is needed.